everybody. I was told to be pretty strict on time, so I prefer to start like 1 minute earlier until some people will maybe still reach the room. Was it easy to find the room, by the way? Yeah. Yeah. All right. So maybe some more people were coming. So I'm super excited to be here today. And yeah, I know that Codemotion is a bit known more as a development conference, but I'm glad to bring the designer's perspective a little bit as well to here. And I would like to talk to you today a little bit about the communication and the relationship between designers and developers. Because I'm mostly going to be talking about from the designer's perspective, but I would like to share with you my experience, some of that. So yeah, maybe taking... All right, I think it's good to go. All right, so how many designers are actually today with me here? I know that quite some. Okay, awesome. And how many developers who works with the designers on a daily basis? Cool. So probably if you came today to my talk, you're interested about how to make this relationship or collaboration work a little bit better, because I know everybody of us having some challenges sometimes with being so different, the role of the designer and the role of the developer. So before I'm actually going to start, I would like us to play a little game. Like, I would like to start with imagining a small situation first. So many of us work in Scrum teams, right? Who works with Scrum teams or in Scrum? This is what I would expect. So we all have a product owner, we all have a Scrum team. So for a minute, for 3 minutes, I would like you to imagine that your Scrum team would turn into the building team, right? And instead of building the software on a daily basis like we do at our offices, let's say building a house, right? And we have a product owner. And I would like you to imagine that your product owner turned into the house owner for some time. So this is our project. We have sorry, this doesn't really work. Oh. Yeah, no. Okay, this is our project. This is the requirements. This is what we're going to be building. So the house owner requested this kind of a house. He perfectly knows what he wants to receive at the end of the sprint, at the end of the project. So he requested a 2-floor house with a wide entrance, with some stands for flowers because he likes that. He requested the entrance to be quite wide because he likes big furniture, he likes big sofas, let's say, and he wants to be able to bring it in. Requirements are clear. Let's start the work, right? So our Scrum team is full power. We did some planning. Everybody got their responsibilities. The work have started. Everything goes well. But sometimes, especially, this doesn't work really well. So especially for people who are living in the Netherlands, we know that sometimes the weather conditions are like, not that good. So let's imagine that there are some impediments there, right? Happens in a software project, something that we didn't specify well, some additional requests came in, something happened. So this has an influence on our work as a team. So the work has to be stopped, the work has to be delayed. We have to regroup and make some decisions there. Let's say we had a meeting, we identified how we have to go. We finished our project, and there we go. So here we are in the demo room, demoing our project to the house owner, or the product owner in our case, right? So we're looking at the burned out chart. Everything looks great. We delivered all the story points. All the specifications are there. All the functionality is there. But if we're going to look at the result, something is missing. It doesn't look quite right. So, when we had the impediments there, we had the time cut off, so we decided, okay, we probably can skip the flowers, and we probably can make the entrance a little smaller. We can use the cheaper paint for the roof, etc. Yeah, so I mean, the functionality is there, right? But like, yeah, we can skip some things. So, sounds familiar? Yeah. Great. But the probably have to just use this one. But the initial goal was this, right? So if you compare the previous picture and this, it looks quite similar, but not really there. And so what is the problem, right? Like, where does this, how does this happening? Who is to blame for? Is it designer, is it developer, is it product owner, is it somebody else? To my opinion, this is the responsibility of the team, right? We are all working together, and I think that with better communication, we could maybe make a better decision, we could regroup more properly, and we could avoid these poor results at the end. So, and who I am actually to tell you about this all? I think I now have your attention to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Nadia Udalova, and I am the UX team lead at Xebia Labs. Maybe somebody knows Xebia Labs. We are a DevOps platform provider, so we have 3 products, and we help organizations to deliver their software faster and with less risk. So I'm working with a lot of technical requirements, with a lot of developers, with pretty development-driven organization. At the same time, I'm the co-founder of Ladies at UX. We have a booth downstairs, by the way, come visit. We're promoting female in tech. And I'm also a big fan of Agile, of the design sprint. So I was certified as a design sprinter last year, which is a really great technique to be used in Scrum. Right, and when I joined Xebia Labs in 2014, this is approximately what I've seen. The company was really development-driven. I was the first designer to join on board. So when I entered the room, the office, it was not that big yet, but I've seen a lot of monitors, a lot of developers. And yeah, the developers been busy fully with the products, and there was really not much user input during the feature development or feature planning. So because the products that we are building are actually let's say developer tools for developers or IT for IT, as I explain sometimes to people, they've been thinking that they can make a decision and just move on forward without much user input, without too much testing, just pick a solution and quickly go. They've been trying to be agile. Of course, that works good in some cases, but was very little user input. This is why I came in on board. But when I came in, this is approximately how I felt. So I was designer in a big dungeon of development-driven opinions, a development-driven organization, and I was feeling a little bit lonely. So this was me at that point of time. And so I started to think, hey, how can I switch this situation to be a little bit more user-driven, maybe design-driven? And of course, I had a big group of developers and engineers and testers and technical product owners to communicate with. So I had a pretty tough challenge. So since then, there is like 4 or 5 years past right now. I'm not alone anymore at the company. I have my UX team that I helped growing. And we are still experimenting today. We have much more designers than developers, much more developers than designers at the company. So there is quite some challenge to be done, but we have gone through certain paths that I would like to share with you today and share some tips, what helped me to set up the proper collaboration and communication with my 7 development teams. So when talking about how to avoid that case with that house, right? With that broken house or not really a super nice house. There are 2 main points that I would like to talk today about. There are 2 main things that I believe really helping designers and developers set up the proper communication and collaboration, and as a result, build these killing features at the end. So the first thing is allocation of the UX team, of the UX resources within the organization. And the second thing is the work alignment between UXers or designers and between developers. So let's talk one by one about these themes. So allocation of UX resources is pretty important because this is like the beginning, this is the foundation of your communication that's going to be happening. Sometimes at the companies I see, for example, that UX is sitting at the other building maybe, or at the other floor, or behind 3 walls. It's still there, right? You still have the UX team, but you're really far from your developers, the people who are actually implementing the stuff that you're designing, that you're researching. So I think this is quite important that we highlight this topic first. In general, there are 2 ways of allocating UX team in the agile structure. First one is the UX agency model, right? You probably have seen this often. Maybe this is the model that you use at your organization. So this is when the UX team is kind of like a hub in the middle, and it forms its own team, and each of the development teams, they're just putting their request on your backlog, on your UX backlog, and yeah, then the lead UX picks what's the most important or which PM maybe screams the loudest, I don't know. And then it kind of like structures the backlog to decide what feature the UX team will work next. There are some good things about this approach of allocation of the UX teams, but there are some bad things. So let's discuss the good things first. I think one of the biggest advantages of this is that the UX team has its own team, like just the developers have their own team, or like technical writers or somebody else within the company. So they can have their own culture, own rituals. They can do the design critic sessions. They can discuss their work. They can share information. So it works better for UX. When a UX team is not involved into the development team, like they do not sit as a part of the teams on a daily basis, I've seen that they have more time to focus on the future features, so there is more time for them to go outside of the organization, maybe test the designs that's being planned, that's being picked as a solution, and they can go and validate the ideas, they can gather some information and bring it back into the walls. And also another thing is that there is a lot of consistency within the designs for each of the development teams, because whenever each of the UXers is communicating to teams, they're kind of building the features within the hub, so most of the time they're consistent. So they use maybe the same components, they talk to each other, so they know what's happening in one of the development teams, so they can replicate it into the other. It works great when for example, a company has a couple of projects or a couple of features, and then the kind of like the design decisions are made in the middle. However, with this approach, we have some minuses as well. And the minuses that I was already earlier sharing, there is a problem with the prioritization, because whenever you as a UX team has the input coming from all of the sides, how do you decide which feature is the most important? How do you decide which one is worth starting first? And another thing, of course, is that because you are not actually connected to the development team, you don't feel let's say the common goal with the developers. You don't feel their culture. You don't feel you don't know what they're maybe busy on exactly with this moment. But there is also another way of doing this, and maybe some of you today as well have this at their company more. So when we are having a couple of same feature teams, let's say, there is a PO, there is a developer, and there is a UX placed within this, each of the development teams. There is a UX lead maybe somewhere that kind of like goes across the development teams and unites what's being done, the work. But mostly UXer sits together with the developers and helps them along, and this makes the full Scrum team. There are also a couple of pluses of this approach. So there is why I like this approach more is because there is fast response, right? So whenever a developer needs a new design or new icon, or there is a new requirement came in that you really need to adapt fast to, you don't necessarily need to wait until your item will get prioritized over all of the backlog that we've seen previously. Also, UX is more involved with the development, so you're really a part of the team, you really know what's happening, you are attending the same meetings maybe, so everybody on the same page. But also, the most important that the focus of the development team is also the focus of the UX, so you're really connected to each other and you perfectly know what's happening. If talking about minuses of this approach, obviously, there is no UX team as such existing, so there is no design critiques probably, there is no, you probably talk less to your UX team. You do not know necessarily what's happening on the other feature team, so there may be some decisions taken that that the rest of the UXers will never know even about, and this comes to the consistency problem because they can use one component and in another team they will use another component for the same reason. And what I've seen mostly that with this kind of allocation of UX resources, the focus of the UX team or UX member is more on the day-to-day work. So, for example, they would tend to more help, hey, what's burning today? Like, hey, let's design an icon, let's design a new interaction. But they would not really, they have less time and less focus on the future. So user testing happening less, to my experience, as far as I see. And you're just really mostly involved with the development team together. So here is the tricky question, right? What's best? A or B? Which one do I pick for my team if I would like to make this collaboration a bit better? The answer here that I would like to start with, it probably depends. It's a pretty standard answer. But I also have some tips. From what I've seen in different organizations, the UX agency works best when you have less designers than developers in a company. So let's say you have 5 designers and you have 5 or 6 development teams, and and the workload on the development teams is pretty different. So you really don't know how much UX work will be needed for each project. UX agency will work better if your development team is more autonomous, if they're making the decisions on themselves most of the time. Let's say if they can go to the guidelines or to the style guide or to the design systems and they can pick, hey, we had the search here, so let's pick another search. Let's pick the same search component there. So it's, if they're able to easy orientate among the design files or design decisions, this one will work also better. And also this way of allocation has more focus on future, of course. If you would like to be more involved with the user testing or with going and asking opinion of the customers, of users, this way usually works better. On the other hand, the hub model works in those cases where the ratio of designers and developers are closer to being equal. I'm not saying equal because I have never seen this in my life. So it's a bit like higher, let's say, I don't know, like 10 developers to 1 designer, maybe less. This one will also work better if the development teams are less autonomous, if they're not sure, for example, if maybe this is a startup, right, and they do not know, okay, which component do we pick? We don't have maybe a design system in place yet. We do not yet have a nice style guide that we could use. So in this case, the design input is needed quite often. And of course, this way of allocation of the UX is then probably going to be much more helpful. And if you, for now, let's say you're working on one feature that you don't like, you don't need a lot of user input, you're just developing something for now just to get it started and just move faster. This is also approach to go probably, because then you really have your UXer with developers, so the answers getting faster to the team, and you just kind of move on faster. However, at Xebia Labs, where I work, we've been experimenting with the two, and we kind of found that not one of them really like suits us. So what we've done is the following. We use the UX agency model, so the one that was on the right. So we have a UX team sitting in place, like, let's say, among all of the developers. And we have the Spock designer with us, right? What does it mean, Spock designer? This is a person on the UX team, which is a go-to person for a certain feature team in the company, right? So if, for example, feature team 1 goes to Anna, feature team 2 goes to Dennis if they have any questions. So they have a particular person to which they're going in case there is anything happening or anything needs input. Why is this working for us? Why did we implement this? Because what I'm seeing when we have many engineers working on a feature and we have a couple of developers, they do not necessarily know, hey, which one of those have been busy with the feature that I'm working on? Sometimes they just like, whatever, I will just pick something and I will check with them later. So this really helped for us like to have that single person of contact on the team that any engineer or developer would go and talk to if they need help. Also, what we've done, we mixed the two approaches a bit. So for the teams that are that the roadmap is a bit more clearer, let's say, that we know which features are coming, we work in the UX agency model. But if there is a team that's really building a prototype or needs to move really fast, then we taking one of the UXers and we are putting them on the development team. So, hey guys, this is your designer. We close you up in a room and you work together. And if you need anything, he is there and he just want to help you on the spot. So we are playing a little bit, experimenting, and I think this works really well for us. But of course, this is not it. And here comes my second point. So how do we make this communication even stronger, right? Allocation is one thing, but aligning the UX and development work is another big secret, is another big nut to crack. How I would like to talk about the UX is that UX is an icebreaker, right? Because actually, this image really reminds me of a software development process. When there is an idea about a product or a feature that we would like to build, it's something for us not investigated yet. We're not really sure how we want to go, what we want to do. So UX is an icebreaker that goes out there and breaks the ice and make the path for everybody to be able to move smoother or to not get any damage. So what we found that works really well for us is to really align the UX going a little bit before development work, and it doesn't mean like 3 months up front and then you put the decision somewhere on the shelf and then development picks this up. But what we are actually doing, that we start the UX work a little bit before the release, and you see this big part of interaction, right? So development is also at some point starting to be involved, and actually as earlier is better, just that they are still busy maybe with the previous release, like you can see here. But UX starts a little bit earlier to break this ice, to get a little bit more data, and then they're starting slowly to involve development and engineers, and actually everybody who will be working on the same team, just to share this knowledge, to get this information to them as well. Because sometimes, what I see is that kind of like UX is really disconnected, and the development works on one thing, UXers work on another thing, and sometimes they even do not know what each team is doing, and then the UX kind of like throws the work and like, hey guys, this is what you're going to be developing. To avoid that case, as I said, I'm a big fan of Lean UX, and Lean UX is being built on the agile principles, right? So we really started playing with these measure learning loops in Xebia Labs. What does it mean is that you first like learn a little bit of data, then you quickly build the prototype, can be by design team, can be by development team, then you measure and then you go again. And why this works so great? Because we have the main ideas of the Lean UX, right, is that Lean UX user experience can help you to move from this uncertainty to clarity. So whenever you really do not know, hey, should it behave this way or that way? Should it allow this much of functionality at this step, or it have to come step by step, let's say? There is tons of questions that UX can help you answering when you are developing. Another thing that's really great about the Lean UX rule that it helps you really to drive away from these long meetings, long conversations to inactions. So like you can say, okay, let's pick this approach, let's quickly prototype it and test it and then move on. Another thing goes to the prototyping as well. With the Lean UX, we can remove a lot of development ways because developers' work is of course, is very expensive. You guys, you put a lot of effort into the code, and it's really pity to throw it away if that doesn't really work. So what we are doing at ZBA Labs, we are using design tools like InVision, like Framer, to build a prototype, to early validate it, at least with somebody, with people around, or with prospects, or with 1-2 customers. That's usually enough to learn tons of information there. And then this information goes to the development, because shared understanding is one of the things as well that we understood is really important. Having developers at the user testing sessions, at the user interviews is really beneficial. I see that sometimes people need some time to understand how much value they get from there, so not everybody wants to join those kind of meetings because they probably think that this is a lose of time. But I strongly advise to try to attend some of these meetings. You will see how much value you get from there. Because this is what I've seen at my company, that in the beginning engineers were not that interested to join the user research or user testing sessions, at least once in a while. And then you see, it helps you to see how the users are thinking and how exactly they're working. Lean UX sounds great, right? It seems like it will help us to solve some of the problems, aligning the work, so UX and then development, and there is overlap in the between. Seems like can help us solving the problems. But after this UX iceberg, there is some icebreaker, there is some icebergs left, right? There is some problems still there left, so not everything goes so smooth as we would want it to be. And with this part, I actually would like to give a couple of advices, couple of things that we learned at ZBA Labs, how to overcome this iceberg after this research was done, after we aligned our work properly. There is still some questions to talk about there. And, I have 4 main challenges to talk about that I've seen happening with us when we applied all of these methodologies that's supposed to fix the collaboration between the developers and designers. We still been hearing that, okay, the UX is really not part of the development work, like we still do not really know what you guys are busy with, and this goes the same from the developers and from the designers. Like, we still seem to like sit together, let's say, or interact somewhere, but there is some information still missing. So my advice, what really helped us, is that a UX team member, the Spock designer, remember, he would attend his dedicated team to be there on a stand-up, on a daily stand-up, because this is the place where all of the problems are coming up. This is the place where all of the daily challenges are being told. So yeah, this is a great resource of information. And at the same time, at the stand-up, you as a designer, you can say, hey guys, we are working on that feature, and the development can also say, hey, we are working with this. Can you help us? We have a problem there. Another trick that worked really well for us is related to the problem that design decisions are made without the involvement of the design, or of the representative of the design, or user representative, call it however you want. We are dealing in this with this in two ways. So the first one is extremely useful one for us at Xebia Labs. We are having a UX design required, or UX clarify, or you can call it whatever you want, column on each of the boards of the development teams. And during the stand-up, when everybody is at that wall looking at the monitor, and we are seeing, hey, our column is free, so it seems like we are not blocking the team. They can go without okay without our help. But sometimes when we arrive directly, we see, hey, there is something, and this is for us a call to action. So then we'll make sure that we solve this problem that blocks the development team, so they can just freely go. And of course, another advice, we started to pay more attention to the relationship with the Scrum Masters as well. Scrum Master is a friend of the team lead, or maybe any UXer. So whenever there is a problem, we are talking to the Scrum Master, and we are solving the issue really fast. Actually, Scrum Master then can come to the design team, and then they can say, hey, this feature really needs your input. I'll go a little bit faster because I see I'm a little bit over time. Last 2 points. So another problem is there is no learning between UX and development, right? What I mean by that is that yeah, when there was a problem, when development or UX learned a lesson, we usually are, the other team is usually not there. And when are all of these problems are being discussed? At the retrospective meeting. So for us, is the next rule that there has no exceptions, is for UX, Spock, designer person, to be there at the retrospectives, to hear this problem, to discuss them, etc. And final one, this is related to the story that I started from, so that the end result is different from what was specified in the beginning. There are 3 simple rules. Again, the Spock designer is at the refinement sessions, and we are really we are making a lot of efforts into discussing to the details what was the design about, why are the decisions made this way. And another 2 secret points for us is that UX is a part of definition of done. So how we are dealing with that, this is Scrum Master's responsibility to check, hey, did we check it with the UXers? Yes, great. No, that goes back to the backlog. And same goes for the Q&A. We have a couple of nice projects planned with the quality assurance team. We found some way to automate the quality tests. If you would like to hear more about that, come after talk. We will talk about that because I'm a bit out of time. Okay, and final thing. I'm often getting this question when I'm talking about the collaboration between designers and developers. What if it's really hard to make your designers come to the development rituals, right? They just don't see the sense. There is a lot of technical talks. It's not relevant to us, etc., etc. How do we do that? And the answer to that is probably that I can call that probably your development team then calls and sees designers as this, right, as painters. So like, yeah, just sitting and drawing there all day. And then your designers seeing the coders this way, like, yeah, they're just sitting and typing code, etc. every day. It's boring. Like, I don't have anything to discuss with them. Like, why would I attend their rituals, their retrospective, what I can learn from there? And so my advice is make sure that everybody on the team understands the values of development and the design. So make sure you share those values, because if you do not educate people to understand what's the work you are doing, why you are there, it's really hard to make people to come to these rituals, right? And also, 2 simple rules. Make sure that you are discussing only related stuff at the stand-ups and only related stuff at the retrospectives. Make sure that they're time-blocked nicely. And don't go over the time period, because otherwise people will just get bored and won't attend your stand-ups. All right. I would like to finish with this slide. This is the results that we got at Xebia Labs. This is really all of these small little things. It takes time to learn them. It takes time to put them into the practice. And it really helped us bringing UX into this like development cycle. So we are really, we know what our development team is working on. If somebody would come to me, I would clearly tell you what they're working on because I'm at the stand-ups, I'm at the retros, I'm at the refinements, I'm perfectly aligned, right? Problems are addressed faster with this backlog, a column dedicated to the UX. Everybody is on the same page. We have better product consistency because the designers are in every team and they know which design decisions are made. And yeah, we have the collaborative teams at the end. Thank you. Yeah, any questions? Yeah.
Yes, I have one. First of all, great talk. I was at a lot of conferences this year, and this was by far the best talk.
Thank you.
Of all of them, seriously, really good. I have one question about the build, measure, learn loop that you showed.
About which one?
About the lean UX, where you build, you measure, you learn, you build, you measure, you learn.
This one.
I was wondering if you could tell us a bit how you do the measuring and how you communicate it back to the developers or to the other UXers.
Great question. How do? We usually, we have a kickoff meeting where we would discuss, and again, I have to be honest here, we are still experimenting with this. We are trying to involve developers. Sometimes they're there, most of the time. Sometimes they refuse to come because, yeah, they're pretty busy with the development process, let's say. But we're having the kickoff meeting where a representative of the engineering, a representative of the product owner, and the representative of UX is there. We are discussing the common problem. Then we are picking a solution based on what we have, or based on what we will, based on what product owner would research previously. We quickly build it in Vision or in Framer, so that's your design team who does that, so no development yet involved, because it's fast and dirty. It can be like working halfway, but you can like explain, and people would really see what's the idea. This really helps us to get some feedback like, hey, we understood this wrong, or you know, like they expected this, but we gave them that, and we do 1 or 2 rounds like that. And when and then the developers are also there. So when they are developing the thing, they don't have these questions. Hey, but what if? They kind of like there are some questions, of course, but they have some data already, have some baseline, and they get this from the actual resource. So not like from designer who would come and say, hey, I know how to better design a tool for developers, right? Because they simply would not believe.
So the building is then more prototyping?
First phase.
And then you measure the response of test users?
Correct.
And no development involved?
Not coding, yeah. So they're just there, kind of like they give their input because still, as I said, the products are pretty development driven. There are 4 coders, some of them. So they're providing their feedback, they're participating, but they're not wasting the time on building the thing that probably won't work. Yep.
Okay, actually 2 questions. One, is it possible to have UX designs as sprint deliverables? And the second question is how to deal with, well, I worked on an e-commerce project, and we discovered that some UX people had actually technical skills and developers having UX skills. And this helped a lot, and if you ever dealt with that.
I think the second point is great. We also had just recently experience where the developer had UX knowledge and skills, and that helped us a lot because, he can be a part of the UX team, but he's a part of the development team as well. And he's like really like bridging it perfectly. He knows what he needs, and he explains us what he needs from us. So I think it really works great. For us, it was a great experience. I think more people like that would definitely help you speed up, or like a designer who was a front-ender before, because he knows what exactly the output has to be and what questions you guys will ask later, right? I think this is extremely helpful. In regards to the first question, what do you mean?
UX documents as deliverables. So they are officially a deliverable that developers need, for example, later.
I actually had a slide that I didn't show, so for that I have 2 answers. First, tools are really helpful for us. We are using Zeppelin, so it has, so we place our designs and interactions there, so they see the specifications, the codes, like the pixels, margins, everything. But nothing will work better than a simple communication meeting with developers. I think like if you will hand over them a document that says, hey, this is how it should behave, you will put all of these circles with numbers, this page leads there, there, there. I see that meetings, like when you will actually show them the flow, explain them like what you've seen, what you've heard, will work much better. Any more questions? All right, I think then we are good to go for a coffee break. Thanks so much.